Hello.
Oh,
that
that's really loud. Hold on
the
one sec.
speech thing doesn't like me.
It does not. I don't think it's got it right anytime you've called in. But yes, at the moment it's saying
No.
Rodentowed, RodantTTOWED. It sounds like a car breakdown to me.
Interesting. There you go. Yeah. Not this time. No car stories this time.
So, tell us all about this Ghost of the Closing Door.
All right. So, my mother lives in a house that is well over 100 years old, nearly 150 years old. And it's the oldest house on the hill that she lives on, and it is haunted. At least that's what we feel, because we have been through something in the neighborhood of 3 front doors. They've all been different styles, they've all been different materials, and yet, sometimes, randomly, the door, you will hear the sound of the door closing, and then footsteps about halfway across the living room. And it always, it's not the same door, it is the sound of the door that she has. And the footsteps across the living room are the same, like they comport to the flooring. Like she has a carpet now, so it'd be like clack, thud, thud. So, and that has been going on for the 30 years my mother has owned that house.
Okay. So when you say you've had a few doors, are they breaking? Are they what? How?
They get changed out when they remodel. My mother and my stepfather remodeled frequently, so they would change out the front door to have something a bit more secure, to have something a bit, prettier, something that fits with the house. They just liked to remodel.
And every single door you've had the same the same thing happen to you.
Yep, we refer to it as the closing door ghost because it closes the door and then walks halfway across the living room.
And
it only happens when nobody's in the room.
Where are you in the house when this happens? Is there a basement, or are you upstairs, or just in a separate room off the side?
There's no basement. Well, it's an unfinished basement, which has a door that's closed, but you can't. It doesn't rattle or move or anything. It's a single floor house, except for the unfinished basement. I can hear it from my room, and my mother can hear it from the kitchen, which both come off of the living room. Both are like just off of the living room. And you can hear the clunk of the door closing, and then at like 3 or 4 steps, clump, 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 as the closing door ghost walks to the middle of the living room.
You said 3 or 4 steps. Do the steps vary? Does the tempo of the kind of tempo of the steps change?
Now, think about when you enter your own house. When you enter your own house, you always have the same rhythm when you enter. You close the door, you walk to a certain spot, maybe lay down your keys, maybe put down the groceries, whatever. So you close the door, clump, 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 step, 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 step. It's just a walking rhythm.
That's an excellent point. So if something or somebody was walking, are they walking to a particular place? Because you're right, it does become routine in all of us that we always put. If you come in with your car keys, you always tend to put your car keys in the same place, or you have a designated spot for car keys or house keys. Or can you get a direction from? Can you get a direction from the way they come in? Could you tell where if somebody was walking up there, could you tell what they were walking to?
No, because the house has changed so much. I mean, at one point during the remodel, they opened the wall in my mother's room, and they found a newspaper clipping that dated at least that part of the house to at least 100 years ago. And the house has also had a fire. We don't know anything about the fire, only that there is evidence of the fire still there under the around the porch area, and it used to be heated by coal, which kind of an interesting thing is that in that area is that you didn't get your heat from electricity. You had a coal-fired furnace in your basement. And I'm gonna get. Don't worry, I've been vaccinated.
I realised my mute button isn't working, so I've had to reach across and hit another button to do it. But so this type of thing really interests me because it would drive me nuts, and I wouldn't be able to sleep unless I figured it out.
Well, we've heard it for 30 years, 35 years or so. So, you know, you just kind of get used to it. You hear the clunk, and it's usually when, you know, nobody's doing anything or somebody's in a different room, and then you hear clunk, the door close, and then step, step.
What was there anything significant about the newspaper clipping then? To have found it in the wall, was there anything special about it?
No,
it must have meant something.
It was one of
to cut it out.
It wasn't put in like a time capsule. It was put in like they needed something to fill the space. It was filled with a bunch of just crumpled up stuff.
I see.
So
I see.
Yeah.
And then the
I think they put it back in the time capsule when they finished the stairs.
When I was living, it's funny you mentioned people do the weirdest things in houses. When I was living in Southport, the house I was living in at the time was over 100 years old. It was about 120 something years old, and I fixed a part of the ceiling and I fixed some plaster on the wall, but I stripped all the wall down. And underneath, the guy who did the plastering had drawn a portrait of himself and the guy that was helping him, and that was freaky. To have a face appear,
wow,
like a face appear
nice.
From behind, but they both signed it, so they're both really pleased with the work that they'd done, and they kind of graffitied themselves on the wall and sealed it back up. But people do the weirdest things.
My husband put a little bit of graffiti. My husband did a little graffiti when we were repairing a pipe under our house floor. No plumbers could find this leak, so I ended up having to do an ear to the floor track down to the leak. We cut a hole in the floor, fixed the leak. So when my husband was putting the plank back in the spot so he could nail it back down, he put he put an arrow pointing the toilet, said crapper. Because, you know, just to amuse the people that would renovate the house.
That's what I thought. Before I fixed everything, I drew a note underneath saying, "What do you think of my plasterwork?" and signed it with the date as well. So I'm hoping that in 30 years or something, if the house is still there, somebody will strip down the wall again, and they'll find that the original note from the extension with my little note under it. That'd be kind of cool. It'd be kind of sweet. PhD Tony in the side chat is saying, does it happen more in summer or winter? The steps on the floor. Does that happen more or less in summer or winter? Or is it all year round?
Oh, sorry. You cut out for just a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. So in the side chat, PhD Tony is asking, do the steps happen more in summer or winter?
Well, that's the thing, is when you're home during the middle of the day in summer, because because I was a student, I would notice it more. But it would happen in the summer, it would happen in the winter, happen in the autumn. So, no, we cannot attach it to expanding floor joists.
And
believe me, we have looked for explanations for this. We have tried. We have added weather stripping to the door so that it at least doesn't slam as loudly. We have checked vents on that side of the house. There's not a vent on that side of the house. Actually, that part of the house is on a slab, so there's no under that part of the house except dirt.
Nice. So, have you ever tried to capture it as
but
a
it is the part of the house.
Oh, go on.
Well, that is the part of the house where the fire was, but that's really all that we can figure out. Is it was, yes, that part of the house is the part where the fire was, but no, we don't think the slamming door ghost is related.
And when you say there's some kind of evidence of a fire, is that charred woodwork? Is there kind of soot or
Yep.
tar?
Yeah, charred woodwork. Just it looks like a house that was burned, and then they just built over where it was burned.
That's a bit odd.
It was common. It was a common thing in the air at the time. Well, if you think about it, it burned, we suspect, sometime in probably near the Depression. So that would be a fairly reasonable thing to expect, is that they would just rebuild over what survived.
It would that would literally drive me nuts. I don't know, literally probably isn't the right word there. It would actually drive me nuts. I would have. I would end up trying to record it, to capture it. I would. Couldn't sleep. I wouldn't be able to sleep. I would need to know what it was.
You get used to it. You grow up with occasionally the door slams and somebody walks to the middle of the room. Just, it's just the ghost. Say hi, walk on.
See, that's quite sweet. Just to say hi and walk on. That if there was something there, that is quite. I suppose that's quite a nice way to go about it.
Yeah, well, I grew up, and this is kind of where my skepticism. I was born an atheist. I've never been religious, but I got a healthy dose of dealing with skepticism and group dynamics when my father worked as a show psychic. There were these psychic fairs where several people who would read palms or tarot cards or just do psychic readings would gather, sit in a hotel conference room while there were other vendors selling other things. And that's actually so that's where I got to really get a handle on debunking things to their face. But the ghost of the closing door has never been explained, so we just sort of say hi.
That's quite sweet. So, when you say he was a show psychic, did he? But you learned skepticism from that. Was he a believer, or was it just an act that he did?
Well, here's the thing. He's kind of a skeptic, but he believes in that. I never believed in it and have noticed the tricks that he subconsciously uses. So he's not doing it to cheat anyone. He truly believes that he's using, psychic ability, but I see but I saw at the time, well, that's a typical trick. That's, he's seeing this micro expression, or he's responding to this detail.
Kind of a cold reading deal.
Yeah. He was just doing it, subconsciously.
Yeah. Throw something out, and then you pick up on the subtle nuances of responses. Or gestures, or the way they look.
Right.
Yeah,
we all do it, and some people are more perceptive than others, and if you're very perceptive.
So, what does your dad think about the ghost of the closing door? Does he think there's something there?
Oddly, never discussed it with him.
That would be an interesting conversation.
My parents are divorced, so I probably should have led with that. It was in my mother's house. My father is divorced, so I'd actually never discussed that ghost with him.
That
kind of the magic of my mom's house.
Yeah. That's
Well, here's the thing, though. Let's say I discuss it with him, and he gets these sensations, this feeling, and his brain comes up with this made-up story about a soldier who died in that area or something or other. It's going to kind of take the magic out of it for me.
That's true. We all need a little bit of magic in our lives, because otherwise it would be terribly serious.
My children, my 14-year-old still believes in Santa Claus, and that's okay. I still believe in Santa Claus, in a way.
Gotta have some magic, otherwise you would just be skeptic about everything.
Exactly.
Bigfoot's my thing. I'm willing to suspend my disbelief and go with Bigfoot.
Well, it's a big world, and humans aren't everywhere.
Oh my goodness! So we've talked before about ghosts. Would you say
it seems to be my thing?
I was going to say, do you think you might be particularly sensitive to it? Is it? Do you have a more vivid imagination than other people around you, or do you just pick up on things like that?
I pick up on it. Okay, so I can sit down and watch a movie I've never seen before, or one that I've seen 100 times, and I will notice something, or I will have noticed something, and somebody's like, I never saw that before. I love this movie. I've never seen that. But it was right there. Or I watch the background actors in a television show to see what they're doing, because I can listen and pay attention to the front screen actors, but shades of autism, I tend to not care as much. Or I can pay attention to multiple things at once, but the background characters interest me more. And I think that kind of plays into it because I have that same kind of perception that my father has, only I understand that it is me catching things that may not be, that may have an explanation, a perfectly normal, rational, scientific explanation. I just don't know what it is. And I see it and notice it and remember it because I remember everything.
I've got to be honest. I'm a little bit like that myself. I can I couldn't tell you what I did yesterday. But if you showed me a still image of a movie I saw 4 years ago, I could probably tell you what movie it was, and
you could tell me the dialogue.
Yeah, where in the movie that happened as well. If only they taught people in university in through movies, I would be highly qualified right now.
Well, see, I have my husband and I have built our relationship on Mystery Science Theater, So usually when I'm taking my notes for college, I'm kind of doing a Mystery Science Theater riff on the side in my notes, which actually serves as a memory device and helps me remember certain things that the professor has said.
That's a neat way to do it. That kind of memory hook would, I can see that working quite well. That would be quite good.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Have you got anything else weird and wonderful that you want to share with us?
No, that's my weirdness of the day. I'll have to think on it because I've told you I think my 3 top stories. Okay. So, I don't really look to the skies that much. So, I've seen Starlink satellites, but I don't think that counts as a UFO.
You'd be surprised. You would be surprised that we've seen them. I mean, if they existed in the 1930s, of course. But I've come out of my house and found my neighbours all staring up at the sky with like cameras and things like that, cell phones, because the angle that Starlink was going across looked like it was coming from behind some clouds and going off into the night sky. It was superb. But you see one go past and you think, well, that's a little bit odd. And then by the time the 9th or 10th has gone past, you realise it's Starlink. Unless UFOs have started flying
I live in a town.
Lines.
All right. I live in a town where they have the LED street lights, so they have very little light pollution over the street light level. And where we live, kind of on the edge of it, we've got just a beautiful star field. And we see satellites all the time now, which was not true when I lived in the mountains, but it's really cool because we can look up most nights and, like, if you look for maybe 5-10 minutes, you'll see something cross overhead, especially around dawn or dusk.
That would be cool. Where I live at the moment, there's a fair amount of light pollution, which makes it pretty tricky to see stuff. But I think if I got across to the other side of the mountains, it would be a little bit less densely populated. But so thank you so much for calling in. It's always a pleasure talking to you. If you ever do want to call back, go for it. I would love to know. I would love to if you ever figure out what the ghost of the closing door is, I would love to know. But thank you so much.
Hey, it's been 35 years. I don't think we're going to get any new information.
You never know. It might start. It might start leaving little notes. Might start talking to you. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and hopefully I get to speak to you again soon.
I always enjoy it. Bye-bye.
Okay, goodbye.